All right, moving on to Ouija Origin of Evil by Mike Flanagan himself. It was written by Mike Flanagan and Jeff Howard. And, of course, Mike Flanagan also edited it, as he always does with these films. Now, this film, as anyone would expect with him directing and writing, is like, I don't have a metric that I can accurately use here, but I'm just going to go with 1,000 times. It's 1,000 times better. Just a random metric. Why not? It's so much better. It's insane. And honestly, I haven't seen this movie more than once. I want to say this is my second time. I saw this in the theater, and I don't think I've seen it since, and I quite enjoyed it in the theater. And I was really curious on how this was going to hold up on a second viewing. Now, having went into it the first time, I did not remember the first movie at all. Not at all. Not zero. The only thing I remembered is Olivia Cook was in it, and that it was about a Ouija board, and that was it. So I didn't even know if this had any connection, or if this was just the backstory to a Ouija board and where the origin of evil from the board came from that maybe was used in the second or in the first movie. This is one series, though, I will straight out say, and I can't think of many where I would 100% for sure say this about, but I do think you should watch this if you're going to watch the first one. I do think you should watch this out of order. I think the second film will actually be a little better having watched this movie. Like, I don't really think you need to watch the first movie much, but if you want to appreciate what Flanagan did here, with the continuity of the first film really kind of addressing almost everything, outside of course, the characters look different because they didn't have the actors from the first movie that they knew that were going to make for a second movie. That is something easily look past, something easily to look past. But yeah, I appreciated that element of it so much more, seeing as how I didn't know it all the first time, and seeing how I just watched these back to back and was like, oh shit, it is the family from them. It is this, it is that, and they address pretty much everything. That alone was really cool because you guys know how big of a continuity whore I am. I fucking love it. So, and for Flanagan to even bother addressing the first movie, I thought it was pretty cool. Like the fact they brought him in, and he could have done whatever he wanted. If Mike Flanagan walked through that door and was like, I don't want to have any connection to the first film. I want to do whatever the fuck I want to do. And they would have been like, dude, you're Mike Flanagan. Like, go for it. At this point, his name wasn't that big. But they purposely brought him in. Him and David Sandberg. They brought both of them in to direct sequels to films that were really poorly received in Annabelle and Ouija. They were like, oh, well, this time we're going to take it serious. I remember watching an interview with Jason Blum talking about this very specifically. Like, hey, we heard your complaints. We're taking it very seriously. We went and got the best talent available to us, which was these two directors. And we're really, working with them to bring you the best possible sequel to kind of make up for what we had done, both being prequels. Wait. No. Yeah. Yes. Both being prequels. Whatever. Regardless. And same thing with Sandberg's. But Annabelle's, I feel like, a little bit more tied to the franchise. It could be hard to disconnect Annabelle from the other movie, but you could just not address the other movie at all. But that does tie really heavily into the first film, which is really cool. The way it ends, anyway. And with this one ties in completely, which I just loved. That all being said, even if I was to disconnect myself from that, which I really liked, I really enjoyed the fuck out of this movie this time. Like, I pretty much loved it. I really, really enjoyed the fuck out of this one this time around. I was pretty high on it the first time I watched it for sure. I was like, oh yeah, Flanagan strikes again. Good stuff. But this time I feel like I have never given it the credit that it deserves. And I think I'm going to be mostly alone on that kind of praise. I think most people will be like, yeah, it's good. I think it's good. Like, it's fine. I liked it. But I thought it was pretty great. So I do think I'm going to be mostly alone on that, but man, I just was really invested. And I 1.5'd my way through the first one, but this one, of course, I did not because I really, really wanted to watch it and pay attention to it and really soak in everything. And of course, I had a great time with it. Okay, so we start off the movie with the old Universal logo. So Flanagan is, because this is set in the 60s, I would assume that logo is the one that would have been around at this time period because it's changed a bunch of times, like 4 or 5 times over the years. And I want to say at this time period of the film, since this takes place in the mid 60s, that would have been the title or the logo that would have been used in that time period, which I think is really, really cool. And then the title card itself for Ouija Origin of Evil, where it's all like got banners around the edges and it's all in this old font and everything, so cool. And the fact that Flanagan added cigarette burns to the edit, which, just yet another, like him just having fun and being kind of nostalgic and doing homage to a certain time period, the time period of which this film would have been made, and all that is just really cool stuff. I love to see that kind of stuff in something like this, something that the original film is so generic, so uninspired, and for a pure enthusiast of the horror genre to take on something like this and really inject his love into it, it's like we're so lucky that this movie exists, like that this was the sequel. The first Ouija made a ton of money. They didn't have to fucking put any effort into the second one. It would have made a lot of money too, but they cared enough. So when people are like, oh fuck Blumhouse and this and that, they make shit. They do make some shit. Opinions vary, of course, but they do make some shit, no doubt about it. Whether it's Black Christmas or I'm not going to get through the line, the list of them, but I think that they do try. I do. I think that whether you believe that or not, bringing in John Carpenter to do the music and whatnot and be an executive producer on Halloween shows me they care. Carpenter hasn't been involved with the franchise in fucking forever, but they went and they got him, for the fans. They could have just put a fucking Halloween movie out and been done with it. But they really tried there, like it or not. So, and I think there are times where they don't try as hard, like Black Christmas being one of those examples. I think that was some bullshit. But regardless, I think they have a lot of really cool movies, and I think they have a lot of misses. That's okay. But this is one of their hits for me, for sure. So we got the Xander family, and they are scamming people, and I've talked about this on the channel many times, but I really, really don't like people like this. I think it's evil. I think it's fucked up. And like in the movie, they kind of address that. And the mom in this is basically like, look, we're providing a service and this is how I see it. I want to help people. And to her credit, once the real power starts to show itself through her daughter. Once her daughter gets it, then she actually is like excited. Holy shit, we can actually help people. She doesn't immediately jump to this, oh my god, we're going to be rich. She's not there to exploit people. She wants to help them. And even after she scams those people in the beginning, she won't take their $5 because she's like, this wasn't right. This isn't how it was supposed to be. You're leaving here, not satisfied the way I would want you to be. I'm doing this purely to help people. Of course, I want to pay the bills as well, but she is coming from a place of good. And I feel like this is not generally the way that these people are. Now, I don't know enough personally, although I have met a decent amount living in Sedona. But regardless, those kinds of people irk me. But that said, I do like this character, and I think that she's definitely the least morally bankrupt of any of these charlatans that I've ever seen in film before. So we'll give her some credit. They've got mounting money issues, so they start to think they need to up their showmanship. So the older sister suggests a Ouija board because her and her friends, when she snuck out one night, play the Ouija board, and she has this friend that's in there with them playing. Um, and she's like, every 5 seconds, she's like, oh my God, oh my God. And then, somebody like explains it to her, and she's like, okay. And then the mom walks in on him when she's scared, and she just screams for an extended period of time. I thought that girl's character, albeit very, very small role, I thought she was hilarious. I really found that scene to be very funny. Her fear, and then like her calm, and then her fear, and then her calm, and then her outright just fucking like letting it out when the mom walks in, I thought was really funny and really well done. And I don't think that there's anything going on with the board in that moment. I think people are fucking with each other. I don't think that's when anything with the Ouija board starts. It doesn't start with anything until, the mom brings the other one home, and it starts linking up with whatever the hell's in her home that's been there since they've always been there. But then the Ouija board opens it up to these ghosts that are in there that could never really communicate with them before. Although, that being said, I don't know if the one thing I can't figure out is if the dad previously had some interactions with the ghosts. That might be very apparent, and I'm just like missing the obviousness of it, but that's what I gathered from this scene where he's on the bed in this kind of like flashback thing. Kind of feels like he maybe in the past did know about this ghost, this entity that's around. I don't know. That one was a little confusing for me. Maybe on a third watch I'll catch it better, but that's what I noticed in that scene. The rules are exactly the same as in the first movie, word for word, which is cool. Which actually kind of doesn't make sense now that I think about it, because the game Telephone, after like 45 years, the rules would be altered a little bit, but he wants to stick to it continuity-wise, and I'm not going to blame him for that. And every single time we have a Ouija board in any horror movie ever made, when they start playing, someone has to yell out at somebody, okay, come on, who's doing that? All right, are you doing this? Okay, come on, it's starting to freak me out, whatever. You could, it would be funny to put on the first time someone uses a Ouija board in a horror movie and play them like back to back or like right on top of one another, and to show you how identically the same they are every single fucking time, every single movie. It's hilarious, almost word for word. It's almost like they write a fucking script out just based on the first movie that ever did it. And they all just are like, well, let's just go look up what the first movie was that did this. Or any movie, because they all copy that first movie. It's just funny. It's near identical every single fucking time. Anyway. And the 60s vibe in this is very good. This is the first time that Flanagan and Henry Thomas ever worked together, and they've had a working relationship pretty much ever since. I think they've worked on everything since this, because I think he made Absentia, then he made like Hush, and then he made Before I Wake, but that didn't get released forever, and then I think he made this. Oh, and Oculus, I'm sorry. Oculus was his second film. So, yeah, Absentia, Oculus, then Hush, then Before I Wake, and then this. But then I think Before I Wake wasn't released until after, and that was called something else. That was called like Somnia. Is that what it's called? Something like that. Anyway, I'll have to look into if that's accurate. But anyways, I think that if that's true, then he's used him for everything post this, whether Gerald's Game or Doctor Sleep or The Haunting of Hill House or The Haunting of Bly Manor. He's been in everything that Flanagan's touched since, I think, unless I'm forgetting a movie, which is totally possible. Anyway, I like when the mom is like practicing with the board and she's rigged the thing with the magnets and she's asking these questions, and the daughter is upstairs and she's just answering them creepily as the other daughter looks at her like, Who are you talking about? Who are you talking to? I think that's so great. That just shows Mike Flanagan's style and his understanding of horror and creepiness and atmosphere, and it's beautiful. It's so good. It's just and then like when they look around the room and there's that like shadow looking creature with the eyes, and all you can really see is the eyes really bright, which is almost like a reverse Flanaganism. He always has like the characters with the whiteout eyes, and with this one, it's a black character, completely black, like a shadow, with these like very like piercing, vibrant eyes, and it's just really creepy, and I love the way it looks. So very cool choice there. And then all of a sudden the daughter knows cursive and she knows how to write in Polish. So she's, of course, exhibiting signs of someone who has become possessed. And they are very untruthful with the youngest daughter in this movie about how the dad died. And they think she can't take it, which is probably... I could understand doing that. I just think that's ill-advised. But I get it. And... then she leads them to the money in the walls. They think it's from the dad, but it's not. It's from the guy who's doing all this, the monster that's responsible for all this. This like Nazi Dr. Death Defy. I'll be your surgeon, your proctor, your helicopter. Okay. And yeah, I already talked about all that. And then her neck. The little girl's neck in this starts to hurt. I'm not sure if we get an Oh, I think it's because the demon is like latched onto her, and like when she finally like goes and looks in the mirror, he's like got her neck and then pulls her back, opens up her mouth, and then like rams his arm down her throat and leans her back like in this, almost very similar. If I was to, I can't reach it, but looks very much like Nell in The Last Exorcism, now that I think about it. But the way she like leans back and the guy's arms down her throat and all that is so cool. And I love that he's explained why her mouth is so open. It's because he's like jamming his body down there. So that's cool. I like the look of it. I think some people might be off put by the whole gaping mouth and blank eyes, but I really like it here. I think it's really cool and effective and creepy as shit when it's used. And it's used pretty sparingly. And as I said, I also think it explains why it's like that in the next film or the previous film, whichever way you want to say it. And oh man, the bully, when she turns around, gives him that creepy look. This little girl is such a great actress, man. But she like gives him the look, and then he just turns the slingshot around on himself and shoots himself in the eye. Whoo! Imagine, I took a Nerf dart to the eye once from my brother, and I was blinded in this part of my vision for like 10 minutes, and then I had to go to an eye doctor, and I had to, they were worried that maybe my, retina had become had a tear on it, could become detached or something. So we kept an eye on it. We had to heal it, and I was getting flashing in it here and there. Oh man, it was fucked up, man. I thought I was gonna go blind for like a while. I was like sticking it, because every once in a while I'd just have like random flashes. Oh, it was the worst. It was so fucking terrifying. Thank God I haven't had any issues with it in like over a decade now, but at that time I was terrified. Taking a slingshot to the eyeball up close like that. Damn, brutal. And God, this is the kind of horror that I love. This is the kind of horror I constantly blow on this channel, is like the whole subtle background, blink and you miss it, gotta be paying attention kind of horror. This is the kind of shit I love. Like when the kid walks through the door and she's like wide-eyed and out of focus in the background when the boyfriend shows up, and she's just sitting there like this, and then it's barely in frame, and it's very far away, and you have to really be paying attention to see it, but when you do, it's so unsettling. It's like one of those just like look around the screen and be like, what the fuck is that? I love that kind of stuff you might not find until the third viewing, fucking, for for some people. And I don't know, I love that. I love not drawing attention to some of the horror, letting the audience find it on their own. I think that stuff is great. Not centrifugally focusing on it, not putting too much emphasis on it, just kind of like letting it linger in the background. Ugh, ugh, it's just the best, man. It's just the best. And then the mom goes out on a date with the priest, and I was thinking about it. I'm like, because he's talking about, like maybe in another life, I've committed myself to the brotherhood or whatever now, and it makes me wonder, like, it's got to be a thing. I'm sure it's a huge thing, but I never really crossed my mind much. But there's got to be total like a priest fetish for women. I'm sure there's a nun fetish for men too, of course. That like, but I don't know. I feel like this is a little bit more prominent. Like it's just like this guy who's around you, he's comforting this and that, and it's like the ultimate like chase, and like want what you can't have, but also like proving something, like, oh, I made a priest fuck me. It's like I can't get him, so I want him, and I'm gonna show him that not even God can stop how sexy I am. You know what I mean? Like, there's gotta be a total priest fetish out there for women. I don't know how many people would be into that thing, but there's a fetish for pretty much everything you can imagine at this point. Then we get some kind of like coming to age romance here. We get to witness the older sister's first kiss, which is kind of sweet. And they always do this thing where they flop themselves back on their bed and lay out sprawled across, and they're like, ah. That's, pretty commonplace. So, but fits the theme. And oh man, when the younger daughter, she's talking to the guy, the boyfriend, and he comes downstairs and she gives him that whole like monologue speech about like want to know what it's like to be strangled to death, and then goes into like explicit detail of what it's like, and then that guy's just like, okay, great stuff. Fantastic performance by this little girl in that moment. She's so creepy, and this line is so well delivered. Really great, and was actually kind of the hook of the trailer when it was released. I remember watching that in the theater, and you want to know what it's like to be strangled to death or something, and everyone in the theater was like, what the fuck? Like, okay, creepy ass little girl. So that really landed with the audience in the trailer, and in the movie it's even better. The delivery's great, and just kind of her slow breakdown throughout the movie is fantastic. Then we get an Exorcist homage when Henry Thomas's priest character shows up, and he stands out front of the house just like the famous Exorcist shot. So I thought that was kind of cool, the priest showing up. And then she has the ability to read minds. This is how she's so good at what she does. And the priest kind of tricks her into talking about her mother, even though she thinks she's talking about someone else, and changes the subject when he blanks his mind out like Christopher Reeves in fucking Village of the Damned. So that's cool. I like that stuff. And the sitting on the couch, mouth open, eyes blank, freaky transition. Oh yeah. So like when they're upstairs talking, they're like talking about her, talking about like what he deciphered from this girl from Poland that just came there, fled from the war. He has her translate it. He's talking about it, and then he like mentions the little girl and how this has happened, and then it just like hard cuts to this girl with like her mouth open and their eyes white and everything. And I think that's such a freaky transition. I love it. It's good stuff. And then the The boyfriend shows up. She takes her down. She takes him downstairs, and then he's like reaching into this wall, and then she's just behind him in the background, kind of like out of focus, and her like eyes are all white again. She's moving like some deranged clown in the background. She's like, it's really cool. It's really cool. It's creepy. It's effective. I like it. And then like this whole kind of like corruption act that she has, where she like grabs a hold of someone's head and gets this like, she's almost like preying on them like a spider or something. She's like wrapping her legs and her arms around them, grabbing their head, and then talking, and then their eyes go white as she kind of possesses them. And the way that's shot, in the way that it looks aesthetically, is really cool and freaky. And when she does it with the boyfriend, she just grabs his head and comes in really close. And then the way she does her sister, and she's kind of like her arms all wrapped and her legs wrapped around her, and she's going for her. I think that's great stuff, man. I think that's great stuff. And then the boyfriend ends up getting hanged, just like the girl in the first movie. You know, coming down straight in the middle of that house, and boom, right there. Same house as the first movie as well, which is really cool. But yeah, same hanging, which is really cool. And then I like that they talk about splitting up, and the girl's like, no, it's the stupidest fucking thing I ever heard. We're sticking together. This is something that's pretty common in films now, but I don't know how common it was at that point. We find out that they broke a rule because this is indeed a graveyard. They find all the bones and the remains below, so this is why the Ouija board worked like it did. It's because they are breaking the rules. And man, this priest is seriously brave going down into that grate and climbing through there, but it does not work out well for him. He is possessed when he comes back. And then Doris, the little girl, she the way she moves, and she's like crawling around the walls, and the way her body moves and everything is super creepy. Great stuff there. And then like he's able to fight it off for a moment, the priest, but then he ultimately is like kicked down the stairs and dies. So, you know, he goes out swinging. So good for him. He's a good character. I quite like him. His wife died, and he wants this girl, but he's made his pledge, and he comes there and he gives his life to protect this family. And you know, ultimately it doesn't really matter because they all end up kind of succumbing to this evil, but he tried, so he's a good dude. And then when they like go back upstairs and the sister's there, and the dead body out of nowhere comes to life and like bungees into the scene, grabs her and pulls her up and throws her up onto the top of the stairs. I thought that was fucking fantastic. I just loved how out of nowhere it was that guy kind of came to life, bungeed down, grabbed her and threw her, took her up. I thought that was such a great idea. Such a great idea. You know, you just don't see it coming, and then that's where she like latches on to her. And then the mom tries to come and bargain with her, and this is something I love. They just don't do this enough movies, where she's like, look, just take me, and I'm this and that, and she's like trying to sell herself, and then she like turns around and the girl's there, and she's like, or we'll just take you both. Like, I could just have you both. I don't need to fucking bargain with you. You're in no position to bargain with me. So I'm taking you and her. Love that. Love that. And then her face in this, like when she's all creeped out, it reminds me a lot of the face in Lights Out. You know, the David Sandberg fucking short. The way that the monster looks at the very end when she like goes turn on the light or whatever, and she's like sitting right there in the light. That reminds me heavily of that, which is kind of funny because they both made films respectively in the, you know, opposing franchises from the same company around the same time. So it reminded me very much of that. And yeah, the dad heard voices. This is that scene where the dad heard voices in this flashback. So I would assume he knew that the ghosts were there at least. And then when the sister looks into the mouth of her sister, she sees an eye, almost like the eye of Sauron in freaking Lord of the Rings. And then the like demons attack. from behind her and all that. That's super cool. She like looks down into her gaping mouth, and there's an eye that opens up inside of there, almost like inside Jesse's body in Nightmare on Elm Street 2. But yeah, I thought that was pretty neat. And then she takes a needle and she sews her sister's mouth shut, which ends up killing her. Which makes sense because that's how it had to go. I mean, he stuck to it. She's down there dead with her mouth sewn shut. Not really sure why that would kill her, but it does. I guess her sister was dead this whole time, and whenever she stopped it, it was just gonna kill her. I don't know, but yeah, and then the mom comes up, and the daughter now is possessed, and she ends up killing her mom. But then her mom, while she's dying, she sees her youngest daughter, and her husband, and they're waiting for her on the other side. So there's a bit of a happy ending there. And then we get to see that the daughter, much like, as we know, the Lin Shaye girl, she ends up in the nut house, and she makes a Ouija board out of her own blood under the carpet and uses glasses and her fingers to make a planchette, which I thought was really neat, really cool stuff. And upon this, she summons her sister back into her life, which creates their bond, and this is why she would sell that family out, or those people out in the first movie. And then the way like the doc walks by, and he's like, as he walks by, he sees there's two of them on the bed. It's her and her sister on the bed, and then he comes back, and when he comes back, the girl's just standing for him, like looking at him in the window of the door, and he's just like, what the fuck? And then they just kind of and I didn't like this. I have always shit on this in this movie. I was like, oh, the last scare is completely pointless, stupid. I was dead wrong. It makes perfect sense, and I love it now. It's weird. I've shit on that part. I'm like, oh, except for that unnecessary scare at the end. It's just there, like, shoehorned in for one last jump scare. I don't think so now. The way that this story plays out, the connection with her sister, how I know it plays off the first movie and their connection, all that stuff, it makes perfect sense. And the way she's walking, she's like quickly walking on the roof, like standing straight up and coming at him at that angle, I thought was fucking scary. And I was like, oh wow, that was way cooler than I thought it looked. It was way cooler than I remember it, and it makes perfect sense to the story. So I was dead wrong there. And then there's an after credits sequence, which I did not, of course, expect. I just left it on as I was kind of looking through my notes and making sure everything was good. And lo and behold, it is Lin Shaye, and she's sitting there, and they come in to tell her her niece is there to visit her, and she gets a big smile on her face, like she knows what this means, and she's about to go out there for the scene in the first movie. More connections to the first film. So really cool shit, man. Really cool shit. And even the credits play like they're being like illuminated through a planchette, vision hole fucking glass thing. I don't know what the fuck to call it, but it stretches around the edges. Like, it's like the words are all down the center, but then it all stretches around the edges. It's cool stuff, man. Flanagan really, he really didn't have to make this movie that great, but I think I don't think he could have made this really any better. Like, this is as good of a sequel to that shitty first movie as any fucking movie could ever be. So, and we're lucky to have it, and this is something I would absolutely revisit again a few times. I think the family's great. I like the dynamic. I love the performances from everybody. I think the setting is cool. I think the style is great. I think the scares are really well done. I think the music. The music. I wouldn't say. I would say maybe music might be Flanagan's biggest downfall, because I don't remember like any music from any of his movies, outside of the iconic music already established in the Shining movies that he used in Doctor Sleep, but that's to be expected. Maybe some of the music in Doctor Sleep, like when Rose the Hat's coming in to Aber's room and stuff like that, but it's very, very mild, and it's very reminiscent of The Shining. So I don't know if I'd count that, but the music in this is just kind of basic. I don't think he utilizes music properly. So I think that that might be something he might need to look into. From my memory, maybe when I go back and watch Absentia or Hush or any of these movies, which I plan to do very soon, I'll feel differently. But the music in this one is not standing out in my mind at all. Not at all. Didn't pay attention to it, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just didn't notice because I was focusing on everything else. But it sure as fuck wasn't something I loved, because I would have wrote that down and I would have noticed it. So it's just kind of there, I guess. And that's just, I don't know. It's like a missing element. I think it would elevate this movie even more. So anyways, that being said, I think I did like 13 minutes for the first one and near 3 times that for the second one. But hey, man, this thing's 1,000 times better, so it deserves way more time. So anyways, yeah, Ouija Origin of Evil. What'd you guys think? You with me? You think this is a great one, or you think I'm out of my mind and it's just mediocre? I don't know, man. I think it's great. Let me know. Adios.